Azure. How do you
Excuse me, Michael. I've begun recording, so please let me do an introduction. This is Andrew Williams Jr., and I'm here at 5 Points Youth Foundation in Los Angeles, California. We're doing another Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr. and the Andrew Networks. We have multiple guests here, but today's highlight is Michael Rendler, and the topic will cover the VCAP, the Virtual Community Action Planning Tool and Toolkit. So with that, Michael, I'll let you introduce yourself, and I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, well, we'll do a little bit of a rewind. Okay, so in the chat here, I put the flyer. So you can open the flyer up, it's 2 pages. I'll do a screen share with the flyer and show that to you. The other piece I want you to see is the document that's the requirement document for what is a disadvantaged community and the Justice 40 narrative. So I need to get that up. So just give me 1 second here. I'll find that document also.
Well, thank you, Michael. And then perhaps you could begin with introducing who you are. I will begin streaming this in a moment, so it'll be helpful to let people know who you are. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Michael Rendler. I'm the director of the E7 Architecture Studio. And I'm working currently on a national project with HUD around this conversation about how do we actually include our underserved population, our disadvantaged population in the restructuring of HUD Next Generation Section 3. And so I need to kind of clarify what that means. So Next Generation Section 3 is Brad Carson, who we haven't talked about at all, and PV Jobs and the County of Los Angeles have done a whole bunch of work over the last 20 years, starting with Playa Vista, with what's called a local hire ordinance. And this local hire ordinance was, as you do capital construction projects, you need to bring in the local workforce. And out of that, they stood up the nonprofit PV Jobs. We brought a project to PV Jobs called the E7 Architecture Studio for the Los Angeles Community College District, which was to talk about, well, this is good, labor and unions, but there's knowledge worker jobs, and knowledge worker jobs are the next layer into the conversation. So rather than us just thinking about W-2 and labor jobs within the construction unions, we need to really be thinking about a more comprehensive approach of assessing, designing, constructing, and operating our communities by the people, which I call participatory governance. And so to do that, we built a simulation model for the community college district using students. It's called Earn to Learn model. And Earn to Learn model means you get paid as you're actually producing work. And then it ends up win-win. The student actually then is competent to operate as a knowledge worker in 21st century employment. And so to build these things we call smart cities, we need to have smart citizens. And we're going to do that through having smart buildings. And to build that, we need a smart workforce. And we don't have that. And so we've been piloting for the last 2 years in Watts what this might look like. And with that, we put in place under 2 administrations, starting with Obama and his open data model, and then moving forward through the Trump administration with something called the Envision centers. And that gets to the language that's in the Biden administration called whole of government, WHOLE. And so this is all hands on deck narrative. So it's not an EPA problem, it's not a DOT problem, it's not a DOD problem, it's not an agriculture problem, a USDA problem. It's not a Department of Justice problem. It's an all hands on deck approach called whole of community. And so this Justice 40 and the document I'm going to put in the link here says all of the agencies at the federal level need to come into alignment with this thinking. And for them to access any of these resources, $1.4 trillion, they have to do an analysis of how the community is benefiting. So when you open that flyer, my argument is benefit means participation. If they're not participating, they're not benefiting. And that's the complete decision-making process. And to do that, I've developed a curriculum out of UCLA called VCAP, which stands for Virtual Community Action Planning. And that curriculum has been tested in Kansas City over the last 3 years through 2 of their Envision centers, where we showed 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds how to use very advanced tools, as we used in the Los Angeles Community College District, to look at their neighborhood and manage their neighborhood. They have presented that to the city council. They have presented that to the mayor. And the mayor has given that nonprofit an appropriation from the American Recovery Act dollars to address last mile narrative, which is how do we do digital inclusion for this population. So what we did is we reversed the problem. We first showed them if we had these kinds of tools in our community, we could conduct these kinds of processes. We get pushback, oh yeah, sure, they would be able to do that. They barely can do blah, blah, blah. So then when we actually showed them the students doing it, then the city was like, wow, we never thought of managing our neighborhoods like this. And from that, we have then gone to the second layer where they're in a earn to learn model, and they're actually running the network in, it's called the 18th and Vine Historic District of Kansas City. We've taken that model, we brought it on both coasts. We demonstrated this in Virginia with their Envision Center. We're demonstrating it and coordinating it right now in Las Vegas. And we have it working, I'm going to say halfway in Watts right now. And so this idea of South Los Angeles with a 25-year history of working in this space of innovation and inclusion from what was started with program labor agreement that's now Measure J, diversity, equity, and inclusion by our supervisors for 30% of the entire Los Angeles budget, that then gets to a term that's called ESG, you might have heard of it, ESG, which stands for Environment, Social, and Governance. And this is the metrics that's being attached to all corporations in the NASDAQ stock exchange. And the reason this is important is because this is how we're going to measure the value of companies. And we have said that that's triple bottom line accounting, where the environment and the social responsibility are just as important as the profit making. So to be able to measure that, assess that, and deliver on that, we put tools in place and processes called VCAP, Virtual Community Action Plan, piloted in the Los Angeles Community College District for shared governance on a $9 billion bond program. Students sat between the highest level of design work and the board of trustees to approve all projects for 15 years. I thought, no brainer, we're going to run cities like this. I went to Washington, D.C., spoke with HUD, tried to get HUD to think like this. Luckily, I met a gentleman, Gerald Bennett, went to West Point, knew exactly what I was talking about, and been working with them to put the Envision centers in place. Now we have 100 Envision centers. We want the Envision centers to ratify and approve this, and I call it a lens, this methodology of looking at the appropriation and distribution of $1.4 trillion. 40% to benefit the community using a whole of governance approach. And so that's kind of the full circle, if you will, of what I'm working on, what I'm trying to do. Reamus and Andrew and I have been working about this long before there was an Envision Center, long before when they first released this idea of opportunity zone or slate C. All of these different projects have an association because there's a continuum, and we're trying to, map out how do you get the community to really be participatory. So I know that's a lot to say, and this is supposed to be a strategy session. So the strategy is, how do we get the leadership to accept this is the right way to do things without it being my voice? And that's where I really respect Reamus saying, what I cannot do. I know what I'm capable of doing, but what I'm not is I'm not ground truth. And this has to be ground truth. This has to come from the community, be by the community, and supported internally within the community. And that's what we've been trying to put in place. Yeah, so that's pretty much the whole story. I got to get these other two links, but I'll pass it back over to Reamus if he wants to kind of digest that.
Sure.
And
I have a feeling Theresa and Aagin are chomping at the bit. So I'm
Yeah, I just have a question for Michael before
go ahead, Theresa.
I want him to, did he write that down, the question, how he asked it? Is it something he has written down, or is he just asked it out of his head? How do we get the leadership to?
Could you say it once again, Michael? Can you reiterate it?
Yeah, I don't have it directly written down, but the thinking is, how do we get the leadership to accept this methodology of engagement and interpretation of a benefit to the community? So the flyer says, contact Michael, join the movement, become part of this. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how do we, so I thought in the email I put, all these groups have to know what I'm saying. They don't have to agree with me. It's not, I know the answer, I know how to do this. And I want to make that perfectly clear. But you need to come up with a way you're going to distribute $1.4 trillion and benefit the community that's underserved, because that's how you got elected. And this is important because that's a lot of money, and something better happened positively inside of the community with all those resources, in my opinion. And so I want to be helpful.
If I can say real quick, Theresa, I'll just throw it out there now because I know it's being recorded, but the basic study manual, Michael and I've got some traction and agreement about getting everyone to even speak the same language is a first, almost a hidden obstacle, if you will. It's an obstacle that might not even be recognized, but if we don't get enough even on the same page of just defining some of these words, then so that's one thing that allows me to say, because I know across the board beyond this conversation, at the core of the ground truth is a lot of our people that are not speaking the same language on a lot of different levels. And so just across the board. So anyway, Theresa, go ahead with your thoughts. I know you were chopping to say something.
I don't hear Theresa.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I muted myself. Okay. Michael said the thing that he wanted them to know what he was saying, but the word that I would like to give him to replace that with is to understand what he's saying, because in all of our getting, understanding is one of the most important things that we should be getting and giving. Now, in the process of that, hold on. I may have to get something to drink, but in the process of that, I think with the understanding of it all, we need to each take a small little piece, same section, components of this thing. Take one small piece of this component, all of these massive pieces, take one component of these massive pieces. We each take a piece of it, and then we work it from an understanding point of view to give the people a better understanding. Okay, I'm gonna go and get something to drink.
And before I introduce
Well,
Aagin,
I'll build on that. Yeah.
before I bring you in, Aagin, let me say this. Part of what we have to do, and part of what this meeting represents, is there's players like Aagin now and Theresa that have not been incorporated into this conversation. So that's going to help tremendously, because I want to say this for the recorded message as well as just for our ears live. The United Hood Nation piece, Aagin, particularly I'm talking to you and many others through you. And Brad Carson, and he talked about the opportunity zone and the slate Z. This is verbiage that Brad Carson has probably said till he's blue in the face. Every time he talks, I'm sure Michael and Andrew and many have recognized that the verbiage, and I see your hand there, Andrew. But just to finish this thought, the recognition of, and this is where I talk about this brother named Dawood all the time, and Watts, because see, here in LA, and this traction where Michael saw what I was able to do along with Andrew, and what happened at the Vermont Community Center and the second anniversary of this United Hood Nation. And so the reality of the doingness that all of our people are yearning and wanting to see, they want to see things happen. So there's a gentleman named Anthony with this fertilizer that will prove, I'm sure, I guarantee you, to be a big piece, because the doingness, when our community sees enough doingness, they gravitate faster than anything on the planet. Now, what a case in point, Nike shoes, Air Jordan. One thing about our community, if that's the thing to do, everybody will do it. There's a unifying thing about how we get down. Rodney King was a unifying thing that sent everybody into a similar motion, because there's a joint physical feeling. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's joy, but there are things that we do that we unite around. And I was just watching mixtapes about that whole phenomenon around basketball and stuff. But the point I'm trying to say is that when we're closer than I think we realize to getting that language that now aligns, because so it's not just billions of dollars that was allocated from high government or different government levels, but it never trickles down into the doingness of touching the individuals. It's almost like the nutrients and the fertilizer never gets into the base of the plant. So who cares? It's sitting over there in a truck somewhere. And so it's this kind of thing. But anyway, having said all that, Aagin, what's on your mind, big brother?
Yes, there's a couple of questions for Michael. The leadership to accept, using that language, has there been an strategic analysis of the face and shape of the leadership styles that would predictably come, I even use the word, against this, or represent the face of misunderstanding, what the misunderstanding looks like, because they're focused on this versus that. And then along with that is the threefold question. This is a Biden, President Biden's face, so to say, administration's ethos of thinking. If we have another election, because I heard something like 15 years or something as one number system, what would happen if a different administration, I guess we have to say Republican, I'm not trying to create a war between Republican and Democrat, but it is a cold war between the two. What happens with all of this with an administration? Is the 1.5 trillion locked into a system that irregardless of an administration, this will continue, and the usability of this to be even? What shape would this take under a Trump administration or any administration of a Republican nature? Is it user-friendly enough that it works under any administration, because it has some core values that any collective thought would see the benefit of it for the benefit of America? So let me stop there.
And because, Michael, I know you have a brilliant mind, you'll keep all those questions in mind.
Yeah.
But for Aagin, you have not shared with everybody that's live listening, who are you? Why do you relate as a teacher? Where do you fit in any of these thoughts in San Diego?
Well,
In 30 seconds.
No, I'm trying to be succinct. Okay, so
I know you are. That's
I
a good-
happen to be amongst those who come from 10 generations of college educated. I'm multiracial. I'm Black, white, and Indian. And on the Black side, 6 generations. On the white side, 10 generations. So I come from a family of education. So it's important to understand that I worked for, I was the administrative assistant to the Commodore of the U.S. Pacific Fleet while in the Navy for Race, Human Relations, and Minority Affairs. I did that in 69 to 73. And then I'm just doing the big pieces. I had a partnership with World Heavyweight Champ Muhammad Ali. And we did something called Advanced Diversified International Technology that was looking at taking some of what we're talking about in this program, expertise, particularly from the what's called African American community, and can spill over to other communities of our non-white communities, to the Middle East and West Africa. And then the next piece that really takes us here, I went back and followed a family tradition. I have a great grandfather who co-founded Jarvis Christian College in Hawkins, Texas, one of the 100 Black colleges, basically disciples of Christ philosophy. And then his son, my grandfather, graduated from USC in 1931, Los Angeles Christian College, now Chapman University, and he became the first Black administrator in Los Angeles Unified School District. And his focus was superintendent or supervisor of Black attendance, which meant everything that had to do with Black students. Okay, and then me, now we come to it. I was hired in San Diego Unified School District, 8th largest school district in the country. I was the program manager of their Race and Human Relations program. So I advised 9 superintendents, 2 of them who have become assistant deputy secretaries of education. Our current deputy superintendent of education for the country, Cindy Martin, I advised her for 6 years. And I advised Dr. Thomas Payson, who's now deceased, who went on to teach at Harvard. So in that, it's the language you use, diversity, equity, and inclusion is my forte. And then ending it, currently the latest expression of what I do is I'm an ambassador for the LA South Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also a co-captain of the Education Committee. And we do webinars and those kinds of things where this information can actually be distilled, translated, advocated through things that are under my jurisdiction that can get out to the people. And then last, the book that I wrote, Charles C. Flint, The Man in His Times, which chronicles 1884 to 1933. It's on Amazon, it's all electronic. Charles C. Flint was a Black man in Los Angeles who had the ear of the Black population and the white population because he knew all 4 mayors of Los Angeles in that period of time. They used to come to his house all the time. Best friends with the founder of LA Times, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He ran for city council in 1911, almost won. He was the campaign manager for Frederick Roberts, descendant of Thomas Jefferson, who was our first Black city state representative. So that background is in that book and translates to me. That's it. And then the end of it, it may sound like a separate piece, but it's very large. I'm producing my next book that's coming out next week in print on the musical blueprint, Ernie Freeman, The Man in His Times, and it will introduce to the world an unsung hero who was the beginning before there was a Quincy Jones or a Clarence Avant, 120 gold records, 20 gold albums, 2 Grammys, the Rat Pack, anybody that was anybody in Los Angeles music culture, he was behind it quietly. and I'm about to reintroduce him to the world. And only because I'm bringing that up, because music is a central part of ethnic communities, particularly Black. If you don't do this through music in part, you're not going anywhere, okay? But in this musical blueprint about Ernie Freeman, which we're gonna celebrate 100-year celebration on August 18 in Los Angeles, he represents the foundation of the musical platform. And I'm talking about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 80s. And as we speak, I just got information from his daughter all the way to 2022. Grey's Anatomy, the Jersey Boys, Ugly Betty. I could just go down the list of everybody that's using his music, and we do have to use music. So let me stop there. That's a brief piece. And then I want to go with Sister Theresa King, understanding
Now,
that.
the question on the floor is still to Michael, those 3 questions you asked him before I.
No, but I'm adding those 3 questions now. Here's the last piece, the tail on the kite. In the field of education, we call that jigsaw, and she's absolutely 100% correct. You have to divide this body of information that you showed us, I read it and looked at it, into a jigsaw where everybody takes a piece, vet it out, do what they do, and then report out in a design thinking how to launch this campaign. So that's my first go round.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to back up and do the cross administration continuity question. What happens as we switch administrations? Okay, so we already have done that twice. And so this vision is already a trajectory across administrations. And that's important because it starts with Obama starting something called the open data model. And he said 2 things. He said the data needs to be available to the public, and we need to bring research to the middle schools. Okay, so he started it. When I got to Washington, D.C. to talk about this concept called VCAP, Virtual Community Action Planning, I put it together through UCLA under the Obama administration with the director of data within the Obama administration. Then they switched administrations. The next administration interpreted what I was talking about and put in place with Deloitte something called the Center of Excellence.
Center of what?
Excellence.
Oh, okay.
And that is what I built for the community college district called an ERP integration. And ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. So the community college had that in place when I showed up, but they didn't have their facilities to be operable in their ERP. And so that's what I built for them, is I put the facilities in the ERP. And so that concept was them being able to measure performance across their programs within HUD. So Dr. Carson brought Deloitte in to implement the Center of Excellence through the GSA. That is in place, and that is the software infrastructure that will allow this platform to operate. I'm not saying I designed it, but I was instrumental in telling them that you have so many different programs running in the community, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So there's no synergy across your programs. And the reason you have an ERP is so that you can then start to look at that relationship, and you can see where there's holes in your strategy. All right.
So based on that, I'm sorry, one brief interruption. The holes in the strategy, have you identified and do you have on record benchmark indicators that show that this is progressing along to the desired outcome?
That would be the word benefit. So in the infrastructure bill, so now I'm going to move over to the infrastructure bill where you said, well, what happens if we get a different administration in? The infrastructure bill is titled by definition, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And there's a reason it's titled that, otherwise known as the bill. All right, it's bipartisan.
Okay.
Which means it shouldn't matter who's leading the charge. It's bipartisan. Okay, it's even named that. When they try to do, and I've heard Reamus say this, and I've heard Andrew say this, the Build Back Better. Oh, you're talking about the Build Back Better plan? No, the Build Back Better plan was not approved. This is the infrastructure bill called the bill, which is the bipartisan infrastructure. The money is appropriated. Inside of that is a requirement that 40% benefit the underserved communities. So the document I put in here is how that's being interpreted. All right. And that interpretation is cross-agency. Now, cross-agency is very important because, and Hershel, who's on the call, knows all about this. This is a very, very important concept because it's saying to do whole of government, you need to make sure everything's working. The transportation, the housing, the health and human services, the education, you have to look at the whole problem. And the Envision Center, even though it was stood up by the Trump administration, is a whole of community model. The whole of community model has been in the government since 2000. And it was originally called Federal Enterprise Architecture. And Federal Enterprise Architecture is what I built with the students for the Los Angeles Community College District with their $9 billion bond program. So I know for a fact that's the Petri dish, that was the test bed. Now that test bed went up to Measure J, and now Measure J has gone to infrastructure bill. That was a capital construction project.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So,
Go ahead, Mike.
So we have prototyped already what I'm talking about, and we've used what's called shared governance, which means that the faculty by contract within the community college district has to understand how these capital construction projects are happening. And this virtualization and simulation environment called VCAP is the place where you get a common voice and a common understanding. Okay, so I really appreciate Theresa using the word understanding. Okay, so that visualization of what our community looks like built by the community, that is the core concept. So when you get a chance and you look at the video in Kansas City, that was on the news, and I speak at the end, that they're actually providing service to the city. And this has been presented to the mayor of Los Angeles.
Now, Michael, let me back up, because unlike Aagin and maybe even Theresa, I was blessed to be at the Encounter meetings, and I saw, speak to the award, the competition. I think it was a world competition.
International, correct?
You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
That right there spoke volumes to me the day I heard it.
Yeah.
It shifted my whole understanding of every bit of these conversations that are now had after that with Brad and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, VCAP and opportunity zones and things like that right there, the effectiveness of that deck. The closest thing we were talking earlier about a commercial, a presentation, that right there.
Yeah.
That to me, I think speaks, it allows every bit of the rest of the conversations to happen.
Yeah.
So if you could speak.
Okay, and Michael, before you do that, one more piece to fuse into this on the administration, and thank you, you answered it beautifully. My concern is after January 6th, and should any other crisis emerge like that, even larger, and then when the government is handed over to FEMA and FEMA does what it does, will FEMA allow you to continue to do what you're doing?
Okay, before he answers that, Hasim, and thank you for your question, Hershel Daniel has had his hand up for quite a while. So I'd like, if at all possible, for Hershel to briefly introduce himself, ask his question, and Michael, if you could share those 2 slides with our audience so we can see what it is you're talking about, and then proceed. Hershel Daniels.
Yeah, thank you. So to answer the question and transition from a Biden administration
And
to a
who are you?
And who are
you?
you, Michael? I mean, Hershel. I know you.
Introduce yourself first, please.
I'm civil society organization in the United Nations for the past 2 decades. We promoted since 2014 the creation of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent in the United Nations, which was achieved on August 2nd, 2021. I used to be a diplomat for the country of Guinea to the United States under His Excellency David Morrow, and we're currently in the process of implementing, based on me being a Turner certified construction manager and a lot of background in electronics at one time. I used to be Naval Telecommunications System Integration Command 01. And so we've moved in this circumstance. I've been MIA for a couple months because I'm recovering from quadruple bypass heart surgery and pacemaker input. But on August 25th, that we are going to be putting in place the first annual USA Africa conference on business and civil society. And so that's based on our participation last year in December on the first ever US Summit for Democracy. And so on February 4th, when Russia and China issued their communique challenging the United States with 139 countries in their Belt and Road collaborative, our proposal is based on the idea that people of African descent, this is our time, and that we now have a unified permanent forum in the United Nations. It's time to launch the civil society, and with our allies like michael.rendler and others, that we can take advantage of what is in place right now as executive orders that will go away. Make no mistake that they will go away on the change of administration. But the key is what the executive orders are doing through the OMB, which is embedding them within law. And so that is the move that is happening right now. And
So OMB is the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. You have to define your acronyms, please.
Yeah, you know, I'm military background. I'll acronym you in a second. Okay, so the Office of Management and Budget is headed by a sister who has delivered on April 14th this year. All cabinet agencies, all major federal government agencies have delivered equity plans. I put in here the HUD plan, but as Michael well knows, that between administrations, the details may get lost, but the law stands. Whether or not, like under the previous administration, they implement the law is another thing. You can starve the law by starving the budgetary implementation and staffing. So we have this unique opportunity right now, as Michael has said previously, that to bring it together. And so we just had our National Community Reinvestment Coalition conference. We had over 1,000 of our members. We sent delegates from California, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kansas, Maryland, and DC to the conference. And so we're part of the coalition that's in California, the California Reinvestment Coalition, coalition of over 300 groups. And so we look forward to working with all of you for this implementation, because it can happen right now. Not real soon now, right now. Okay, and by the way, the Hood Nation, we're fiscal, the group that was Carson was working with, okay, and putting that together. Now we went live in California in 2019 and our fiscal fiduciaries with the Los Angeles County currently, as we speak right now. So we're in good standing.
Absolutely. And I want to just throw in there that what's going to solidify it, no matter who takes over office, is the time is such that the people aren't going to let the support for the people fall apart in states and federally and in cities. I believe we're moving into a very regionalized politics as problems exist on the federal level, and trying to disseminate seems to be very difficult these days. However, those laws that he talked about are there, but then beyond that, even the people are going to make sure that the people eat one way or another. But go ahead. I think Andrew, you're on mute, big bro. So I don't
Thank
care
you.
how
So
loud
Michael
you
Rendler,
get.
if you could share your screen and at least give us a visual of what it is you're describing, just those two flyers. I know we're 50 minutes into this, and I want to respect your time, Michael, but please share with the audience the visual of what you're discussing with the Envision centers. Thank you. And Justice 40.
And
Yeah.
don't forget the FEMA piece, because Reamus says hope about the people, and I'm going to say it that way. If FEMA's in charge, even the government can't tell them what to do. So I just need to know where you are with all of that.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen, trying to follow instructions here.
You've only got
Thank you.
5 things to do at the same time, Mike. Come on.
Okay, so I'm fairly technologically adept, so it's not too bad. But anyway, I'm gonna go to Agin's question with FEMA next. I teach at USC in the Safe Community Institute, and I teach a course, and I only teach a couple sessions a year, and it's to the leadership of Los Angeles. And the term that I use with the work I did with Department of Homeland Security is called a single source of truth. So this flyer here, and I call it the conscience of Justice 40, is a simulation space. And so if you look at this, they might call this in the military command central. So no matter what activity we're involved with, we have to know what the site conditions are. And Hershel talks about it. So if you look at this image, this is one of the images we generated where we've actually virtualized the city of Los Angeles. And these screens then allow you through this technology then to drill in to these conversations. So this is me teaching a class where these students are learning how to build this technology. So this animation here is in that link. This was shown on the news. How we went to the students and said, what do you think we need in our community? And this particular lady, girl, 15-year-old, said, well, we don't have any health clinics. And she went in and designed a health clinic. This is a ergonomically accurate to 1/16 of an inch simulation of what a health clinic is. And she did this at 15 years old using these tools. This is this whole area. This image that's here is a study we did, and all those little red dots are cultural centers, places where people exchange value. So this flyer shows that we can deploy these tools, as Hershel said, now. These are online available processes that go all the way back to the Obama administration with this open data model. Now in Kansas City, this group is already being contracted by the city to actually support that open data model. So when you say, what happens when FEMA comes up? Okay, they're going to need the data. And that data is the single source of truth. That's going to be this command center. So they already are doing this, but the people, the general public, isn't participatory. And this is what I call 21st century democracy. If you can't participate, then how can you say that it's inclusionary? So I wrote, for me, participation is benefit. And that's through understanding. This is an educational curriculum. So if I go here, I have this, it's called the QR code. If you scan that QR code, it says, how can I learn more? You can scan this QR code and you're going to get a document I generated that's called the RAISE Grant Logic Model. And what that stands for is RAISE is rebuilds America's infrastructure sustainably and equitably.
One more time.
Rebuild America's infrastructure sustainably and equitably. The RAISE Grant Logic Model. And so that's a process. And that document, I'll pull it up here, the RAISE Grant Logic Model is used to bring artificial intelligence into the conversation using supercomputing. And these students understand this is the frontier and that they can then participate in the next generation. So in the state of, this is important, you hear this, in the state of California, they have something called the housing element. And the housing element is a report that every city in the state of California has to submit to the state of how they're going to solve the affordable housing over the next 10 years. And that study is called RHNA, which stands for Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA. And to do that, they use a tool, and the tool is called agent-based modeling. And agent-based modeling is what's in this RAISE logic model. And I bring this to your attention because it's at that level of sophistication that cars are being able to be automated. It's at that level of sophistication we will deliver urban agriculture. It's at that level of sophistication that we're going to be able to get clean air, clean water. All of the environmental narrative, the entire environmental narrative will be at that level of sophistication. If our society can't participate because that's too high level, that's next generation segregation. That's worse than the redlining we had the first time around. So we have to build an inclusive participatory process into digital technology to be genuine with this conversation. And this is what VCAP, and that's what the V stands for, virtual, so that everybody can access the entire conversation through the internet. And they have access to the internet, and they know how to use the internet, and they know how to use these tools. So just like Hershel put in the chat, he put the same document I put up there. This is what it means to be a disadvantaged or underserved community. That 2040 document, same document. He put it directly to the White House link. So knowing how to exchange data, knowing how to run meetings, knowing how to work in the digital workflow is what I call a professional workspace. And this idea of having these Envision centers or innovation labs in all these neighborhoods is the next generation learning space. And the next generation learning space will talk about 24/7 learning and earn to learn models. And that is all about this digital transformation model. And so that's what, back to what Theresa was saying, to me, that's the understanding we have to get the Board of Trustees in the community college to adopt. We have to get the Board of Trustees in the LA Unified to adopt. We have to get the Department of Education to adopt, because COVID has amplified this conversation. The people that are rich got way richer. The people that are marginalized are way more marginalized. And so
Now
this
that
is,
right there, if you don't mind an interruption, is a
No problem.
concern. Dr. Shirley Weber, Secretary of Education, said in the meeting I was sitting in, I don't know, even 5 years ago, that California, the 5th largest economy in the world, will soon inherit 30% of the wealth in American culture will be relocating in California, and that it will almost become the very rich and the very poor. And so how is all of this going to actualize for the greedy population? Marcus Tullius Cicero said in Rome, you can love the people, not love the government. You can love the government, not like the people. You know, we're going to still be doing all of this stuff. How are you going to break through these wars, these Cold War thinking?
And let me jump in right there, Michael.
Sure.
Because there's another little phrase that says the people are the government. That hasn't really been tried yet. So watch this, because the next generation learning space, this is what I bring to the table. This is what's going to change the game in LA in a very short period of time. We are going to get a next generation learning space. And by the way, Michael, what I will do in that space will be to show that video of you getting that you winning, which is what I was asking to see, not necessarily right now, but I know it's too steep of a gradient to start where you are, because you talked about several people buying in on different levels, and you mentioned the education. Here's what I know. Here's where my life's mission is related to what happened on Saturday. I know how to go get the masses of the people. I think about these mixtapes, believe it or not. I just saw yesterday on 30 for 30 on ESPN. Because one thing about Black folks, when we decide to do something, put some music with all that, the basketball games, and it looked down like the Harlem Globetrotters, now the whole NBA plays like that. But there was a time where that was a very specific, unique, little bitty microcosm, petri dish in Harlem, in LA. But now, and the mixtape, now everyone's embracing to where the NBA now, if you don't play like that, you ain't even on the squad no more. I want you to understand what I just said, because I promise you, herein lies the solution, because the masses are already digital, and the youngsters, and way more so than their parents and these other people up here. And if we keep shooting up here, it'll never happen. But I'm telling you this, it's almost like a mission, Andrew, or like the I Help, back to Scientology, and Watts, Dawood, Long Beach, Compton, and Watts, and everything in this conversation that I know, including Aagin and Kenneth Wyrick, I don't see him right here, but Hershel, that Watts piece, there's traction, Michael Rendler, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm saying it's more for the recording audience and for Aagin to hear that location. And Kenneth Wyrick said, we need a location, Reamus, we need so the focal point is this: when we have a entrepreneurial, proprietary, owned by Reamus, owned by Courage to Rebuild, owned by SuiteExcursions, that's no politics. I don't have to worry about who like it. I don't have to worry about the big boys coming in and taking it and running and stealing, and that's not going to happen, because now you've got United Hood Nation, now you got Nation, now you got the people on the streets are like, that's theirs now. And they will fight and kill and die before they let the governmental backing and all these other things and the whole nine and Governor Newsom and Bruce Beach, before they let any of that not prove out to be true, they'll die, kill. There's nothing left anyway. Because like he said, like Aagin just said, either you're going to have it really going on or you're going to be broke and dead. There is no middle ground anymore. Either you're fully participating and winning, and you got $1 million coming through for some kind of way somehow, or you have nothing. There is no gray area of halfway making it work or not. Either you winning or you're losing. And that's what I guarantee you in this digital divide and the branding and all these individuals, these Instagram, TikTok, these cats out here, these youngsters, they want to get from zero to having an empire tomorrow. That's real to them. They don't know nothing about this gradient and taking your time and steps and putting businesses in place. And that's like, man, please wait an hour. I'm trying to get some. If the line is too long at Starbucks, I'm going to McDonald's across the street because they got 2 cars less than this line because I got to go get some coffee. That's people's mindset today. They want, so what I know is when we put that next generation learning space and we create it and we go to do it, along with everything else we're doing, the gardening and a lot of these other things are going to organically come together. Trust and believe that. But meanwhile, that spot where I show that video, Michael, trust me when I tell you, Aagin and everybody else we talked to, that's a foundational piece. That award that Los Angeles won an international competition. If that's not understood, it's really a lot to get people to understand the Envision Center. That is a prerequisite step that happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, or Hershel, or Andrew, anybody. I know Michael's the one that step of winning that and doing that, that allowed a certain buy-in for the resume, so to speak, for a lot of other conversations. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, so Queen Theresa King has a hand up, but Michael, if you could, just if you don't have a chance to show us, can you tell us about this award, please, briefly, and then Queen Theresa King.
Okay, so just quickly on the award. So there's an international competition that Bentley Systems, that's owned by Siemens, has every year. And it's Innovation in Government is the award. And so they had this competition, and the project—
What year, Michael?
I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it was 2015.
Right around that time when we had that United Hood Nation, it was fresh in the air at that time in 2016, but go ahead.
Okay, so I believe it was 2015. It might have been 2016. I have the manual. Anyway, so that competition took place. It was conducted in England, and there were 3 finalists. And so some people flew over, part of our team, to be part of that competition. And it was the 3 finalists were Russia, China, and the United States. And we represented the United States in the competition for the most innovative project in government. And it was awarded to the Los Angeles Community College District for the E7 project, which was this concept of using digital technology to do simulation for what's called what if performance. What if we do this, then what happens? And we were funded in part by the Environmental Defense Fund to actually show how to operate the campuses at carbon neutral standards. And we built it all with military specifications. And that's why we won the award. Wasn't just the concept, but it was how we built it. That we built it with the most advanced technology on the planet. And we built it with at-risk students. We built it with community college students, not with Harvard students, not with high-performance USC students, but with community college students. And we built it at PV jobs in the ghetto, in the hood, if you will.
And that program beat out the best of Russia with the same task, and it beat out the best of China with the same task. And what you came up with VCAP in the inner city and all of the LA Trade Tech and which is a junior college, and that, see, it's only about that good work is not publicized yet. I promise you. That's it. That PR piece. And because nobody, I watched this, I want you to hear me. I watched it being in the nation in 2016 when all that was brought. And I watched people's eyes get glazed over to this day when they saw that Michael.Rendler was in there talking. And I don't know if I thought, well, this white dude, discredit him, the hell with it. I don't know, man. Whatever the hell, he ain't in the nation. I don't know what went through people's heads. But I do know they didn't buy into, do you realize that is the model? And this man is consistent since then till now, which is a part of the story, which probably had to prove itself out. But even me coming out of non-reality, you were non-existent to me prior to that. But I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, as we saw those little kids out there over the weekend at our event, 2 little boys, if they don't plug into this, there is a pipeline to prison or the Inglewood Park Cemetery that's waiting for them right now. If they don't catch on in the next few years, and they don't stay on the right path of that farming and being around Kenneth Wyrick in this conversation, there's nothing to catch them. Nothing. And they will just be, oh, well, what do they call it? Roadkill. There's nothing built in to change any of this. And that's why I'm passionate, because the Dawoods, the whoever, where are all these meetings? Where are these 3,000 brothers at with all these meetings going on? They just, you know, and sisters. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that.
It's
Queen
Yale
Theresa-
or Yale.
Queen,
Yale
Queen,
or Yale.
Queen Theresa King. You have to unmute.
Shahid,
So
you can go and say what you were gonna say. I want to see what you were gonna add to what Reamus said.
Oh, thank you, sister. Jesse Jackson said it's Yale or jail. And it's what Reamus was saying. We don't have time for all this middle stuff, but of course you have to, but we really have to speak to people to do quick transitioning from jail to Yale. Some of our most brilliant people come out of the minds that really were destined for jail, as we know if we study history. Okay, so how do we get this quantum jump from the general thinking of jail, headed on their way to jail, or headed on their way to Yale? I have 3 people that I know to this day. I got a friend right now who was one of them, those street brothers, and he graduated from Yale. We need 1 million more of those. So thank you, sister.
Okay, and to answer that as best I can would be to change the way they process in their thinking. So to get them to change their way of thinking, and that's all process stuff, but it could be worked out and done. Also for Michael, I can create your PR pitch for your media and help you to start doing the circuits in the technology magazines, the technology shows around the country. I can help put you out there like that if you want to build your brand as the you know, whatever. We could talk about all of that stuff in the future. The question that I had was, I would like to be able to know more about the agent-based modeling tool and how we could look at that and break that down. I don't know what we're going to start with, or what you're planning on doing, or how you're planning on proceeding. I'm someone that don't have a lot of time, so my time, for me, I try to get as much out of every hour as I can. So the less talking, the more work, the more focus on that. Or for me, conversation needs to be on exactly what it is, the ABC, who, what, when, where, and why, and nothing else for me. So if there's any way that you could help me with that, learning the agent-based modeling program and seeing how we could use that or utilize it in the way that we need to utilize it. I just need to learn more about it, because I think that's what we're going to be actually working with for that particular component, correct?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So I wanted to put this document in the chat because it addresses
And can you share it? Because putting it in the chat is one thing, but how can we know what you're talking about?
Well, I click on it and then I go and save it in my computer, and then I take a picture of it when he shares it on my phone.
Yeah,
And
you
then
can
I know
put it.
when I'm writing.
But because what we're doing is intended for a global audience
Right.
who aren't here with us, it's only what we show is
Okay.
what they'll see.
Okay, so this is in response to Aagin talking about our incarcerated. So this is a position paper I developed for Brad Carson. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly. It's called Smart Citizen. The bottom line is this was built for the reentry population. This is a methodology that actually allows them to understand what's called agile manufacturing. This is the definition of locally sourced. You can see Siemens is one of my sponsors here. And this is a methodology of them understanding how automation works. This is what Amazon is using. This is what Tesla is using. This is what SpaceX is using. And this right here is a map that has the 15 CTEs. And these are the 21 projects in Watts, and this is a neural network. And this shows that regardless of which career pathway you're in, it's going to connect back to the community. It's going to connect to physical space. And so these 21 projects are the decarbonization projects that are in Watts. This is the micro model for what's happening with the infrastructure bill. And this was intended for us to be able actually to train and educate our constituents into being able to look at, in this case, life cycle cost analysis. Life cycle cost analysis is not just putting the infrastructure in place, but it's what Brad and I call assess, design, construct, and operate. And I said that at the beginning, having a population that's able to run their communities, we do not have the smart citizen. And so this was a pilot program developed per sector, had exactly how many people, how long it would run, and all of these people would be employable. And it was a 1-year project. In 1 year, they would be highly, and it was built off the E7 model. And so this has the curriculum, the partnerships, the technologies, and the first introduction is this virtual community action planning. And the stuff I put in the chat, the video, is the deployment through the Envision centers. So when you click on that raised grant logic model, you're going to see this as the second step. It's a 3-step process. Step 1 is to understand VCAP, called the framework. Step 2 is to go through this level called the doers, the one who actually support the back-end infrastructure. There's thousands of jobs in this space. And then the last one is how we get the paraprofessionals and the professionals to get building permits and conditional use permits that really are sustainably, equitably, and most importantly, environmentally accurate, which is what I built for the Los Angeles Community College District. So in essence, all I wanted to do is take this award that Reamus asked me to talk about and just put it in every city in the United States. And I can tell you right now, all we have to do is 15 major cities in the United States, and you're going to affect a lot of people. The money is there, the idea is there, the proof of concept is there. And all due respect, Theresa, I'm not marketing. I'm not trying to sell anything. All I'm trying to do is say, guys, let's get on the same page here. Let's make this happen. And that's why I ran over to Reamus and Andrew and said, hey, we had these meetings. You have Church of Scientology, they're huge. Tony Muhammad, Elijah Farrakhan, they're huge. All we have to do is get 10 smart, really smart people. I love Theresa's word, to understand what I'm talking about. And then look at those 2 videos. Look at these kids. They're 15 years old. When we showed it to the mayor in Kansas City, he goes, you guys know more about running the city than I do.
Michael, let me
Michael.
chime in, man.
Okay.
Let
go
me
ahead.
chime in. Let me chime in because I am the sales. I am the PR. I'm telling you, because I realize if it's not presented, let me say this. That's why this basic study manual, I know in front of a bunch of people in Compton, Watts, and Long Beach, we're going to find a spot. I'm telling you what's going to happen. How do you predict the future? And visualize something, say what you're going to do, and now you predicted the future. I can tell you what's going to happen in the next month because of what I know I'm going to do or be dead. If it's not, you'll say, well, you're at my funeral saying, this is what he was planning on doing. He talked about it, but he died the next day. That's the only reason it won't happen, by the way. But I'll say this, that, and if God keeps me breathing, that will happen because I know I sat there, y'all. I'm deeply in the trenches in the nation and watching this shit and in so many ways, I'm like, shit, it's too painful. So like Michael said, everybody has a job to do, but I'm gonna tell you right now, that Church of Scientology has a thing called a mission. They need a mission in Long Beach, which kind of coincidentally is along the lines of like an Envision Center, by the way. And inside that mission, they will love somebody and they're talking about, you can't go past words you don't understand. And it'll go straight from that. And when Michael pulls up those documents and in the first paragraph or 2, there's a few words they don't understand, stop and do what the hell this book has just taught you to do and clear those words up. Because to just keep thinking you're going to keep trying to pretend like you know what the hell is being said, and there's about 10 words and acronyms that you don't even know what the hell they are, I promise you, you'll glaze over an hour later, the presentation's done, and you'll be like, that was beautiful and great, and you'll go back home and do nothing. And we'll be right back to square one. You see, and I'm telling you that the 10-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, you need those words because like any language, You might have heard, like I'm teaching this little 1.5-year-old the ABCs right now. And you know how many times you got to say the ABCs? I've never been a mother ever. And, but damn, you got to raise your own. Like they got to see that ABC song like 1,000,000 times. It's not sexy. They got Gracie's Corner. But what I'm trying to say is, and then it starts to sink in. Oh, now, but we got to be working on that with the masses while Michael and all these others in cities and government people that can keep up with it. And they're going to keep doing all of that. But if we don't catch the youngsters, and that's where I get passionate, if we don't catch everybody, and so whoever's ready, there's some 10-year-olds ready for this conversation right now, 8-year-olds, 6-year-olds probably, shit, maybe 4-year-olds, I don't know, that they can keep up better with some college educated people that supposedly are college educated, and because they got so many misunderstood words in there with their degrees, they couldn't even keep up with some of these conversations. But I guarantee you there's some 8, 9, 10, 12-year-olds that would totally be tracking and would lead their grandmama and the granddaddy from the Bible Belt and don't know shit about what's real today. And oh, you can't do that, baby. And oh, if you don't cover yourself up and pray 5 times a day, then you can't do nothing. And meanwhile, you'll die. Meanwhile, you'll be dead because you're stuck in an old paradigm. And if you're not able to be productive right now, I don't know how you get through tomorrow or today. So that's what I'm saying. You can be excited, fired up. I watched it in 2016 when Michael first presented that thing. And I know he's been on it and building it now, Kansas City, and is in the conversation and so many other. I think we can get 5 cities in California, Michael. Is that cheating? You said 15, but Northern Cal, LA, San Diego, Long Beach, Compton, Watts. I see where there's enough to do in California where I'm focused, LA, that's what I know. If you're in Chicago, please be excited about doing this in Chicago. I can't be in Chicago and LA.
Right.
Or California.
And that's why I was leaning on the Nation of Islam, because I think that I'm fine with 5 cities in California, but that 1.4 trillion is not coming to California. It's going across the United States.
Got it.
So if we capture California, fantastic. But I have the Envision centers in the state of Kansas. I have the Envision centers. I have the conversation with Mark, Middle America Regional Council. I presented to them over the last 3 years. I have West Point. I have Virginia. I was very instrumental with General Bray in putting these Envision centers in place. There's 100 of them. But each time I have to have a meeting and there's 5 people in the meeting, that's not a deployment. We need to have a deployment. We need to say, this is how it's rolling. This is who's in charge of the Urban League. This is who's in charge of NAACP. This is who's in charge of the faith-based organizations. Therefore, United Hood Nation. Okay, it's above my pay grade. Michael, we need you to talk at this. I'm ready. But I cannot do this as an individual. There's no possible way. It's a government program. And all I'm trying to say is this works. It has worked. It's been tested. It's not a white paper. It's an extension of Mr. Carson's work over the last 20 years. And we're working with some financiers to get some financing underneath it. And we could do this. We could deliver on this idea. It's not
Let me bring it home
abstract.
for you. Michael, let me bring it home for you, because the United Hood Nation, the problem with all this conversation is United Hood Nation doesn't have enough of a structure of a governance to deploy to the hood. That's the problem. And I'm telling you, I don't mind heading that up with no shortage of intention and whatever the hell happens. But that right there, because that's where you bump into rubber meeting road, is that right there. And that's why the Dawoods have to be in the conversation. Whether the nation can bring it all together under one umbrella or not, that has to happen across America, New York, Atlanta, Chicago. Hey, if it's all under the nation, great. I could give a damn, truthfully. I want it to happen like I know Michael does, that these lives, long before that little boy knows that he's a Muslim or a Christian or Jewish, that little boy wants to stay alive. At 1.5 years old, he got to learn about these other words. But right now, he needs some nutrients. And right now, they need some knowledge about that. If you decide to put them in whatever camp, that's on you and your family. But right now, oh yeah, miss me with them conversations, mommy, daddy. We got to, we need stuff today. It's cold outside, or it's hot outside, or and we need to be the opposite inside, so we don't burn up. And in a few days, when it gets freezing across America and LA and everything else, you're gonna need some blankets and stuff. And if you're not in position, and waiting on a check to come from the trickle down of whatever, good luck. And it's $10 a gallon for gas, and you got a $50 check for the month. Okay, great. Now what? You better know how to do some things. And that's why I get passionate about the creation of the doing this, because man, and Michael bringing it down to you to be able to grasp it in LA, you could have been in Chicago and could have beat Russia and China. He was in LA Trade Tech. And if you don't catch it, man, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what's going to come catch you next week, next month, next year, 2 years. I don't know how you catch up when the thing is spinning out of control right now. But and so whatever's going to happen with January 6th thing, Trump, whatever, regardless of that, we got to create systems that do work. Even if to the extreme where the nation comes from, if the American Constitution fell apart tomorrow, this land ain't going away. Okay, now something's going to govern different bodies of people some kind of way. Back to the tribes of all the Native Americans. Some way that you govern your people will kick in your house, in your community, and so you need agreement about that. It doesn't, and it might not all be because you're Muslims, or because you're all Christian, or because you're all Seventh-day Adventists. It might have a deeper significance, like, look, you're freezing. Okay, there's a place over here where you can actually be warm.
So
it might get that universal.
So in the context of time, do we have expected outcomes for today? And do we have follow-ups from any of the participants?
I know personally what I'm gonna do. Aagin, I can speak on, we're gonna come together, and Michael, I do think, and I believe, if you can put that link, Michael, even though I do appreciate you doing, like, showing your screen, I do like the idea of being able to click on that link or take a picture of it. And if you could put that in the chat as well. I'm glad that you shared it with our live audience for sure. And because I've now in my spirit taken on the task of getting everybody in the hood to understand that there is such a thing as everything you mentioned, VCAP, Siemens, this whole project, that will become a part of my verbiage for the first time since 2000 ever, but since I've known you, Mike, since 2016. I finally have, I'm a slow student. I finally have enough understanding that I can go out and represent it and point them back to the real source, which is Michael and others. But Aagin, any thoughts?
No, I really appreciate, Michael, the battery of questions that we levied towards you. I have information enough that invites me to want to learn more about what you're advocating here. My concern also, and we're not going to discuss it at a later time, but this whole reparations thing coming up where monies could possibly come to the disenfranchised concurrent with what you're doing, but how they could take those monies and invest it wisely in what you're saying instead of buying a car or whatever, okay, kind of a thing. But also, and I'm just going to say it this way. I told you I was multiracial. My cousin is President Richard Milhouse Nixon. Okay, don't connect me with him. Okay, but those kinds of people like him and their plans for us, I just need to hear how we're going to be safeguarded against those kind of people like that who are only interested in continuing to accumulate wealth, and they're not interested in any shared anything. But again, we don't have to do that right now. You've spoken adequately. Those are other conversations.
Theresa's here. I think Hershel had to leave. Who's left in the meeting? There's 6 of us. Michael, Andrew is here. Michael's here. Michael spoke.
I just want to, before we go, and Michael, we could talk more about this in detail in the future. As far as getting out there and exposing this to the world and getting everybody on board, if there's no marketing strategies, no promotional strategies, anything like that to spread awareness, planning community events across the country, whatever it is that might need to be done to get it done, that's not, it's going to be difficult. And then if you would like me to talk more about it, I do have the tools and all of the information. I have a database of over 3,000 individuals in the media across the country. And as far as bringing people together with something else you said, the politicians and the community leaders, I'm sure we all have databases, but I got a lot of them I know personally, but I'm very good with getting these organizational heads in conversation. And I think a great idea would be is to start doing Zooms where they're very well structured to hit so many points in a Zoom, just to give people an overview understanding of what it is that we're trying to do to get them on board. And we could plan that out so it'll go smoothly and people will be willing to come back. And then one more thing. Anyway, call me Michael. Let's talk about it, okay? Because
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
very interested, but I'm only interested is if I'm working and getting it done
Understood.
as soon as possible out the way. And not only that, but all of these pieces you need to talk to. What's your friend name? Reamus, Anthony has a very, very, very important piece to all of this.
Sure.
Now, Michael, I've been hearing your conversation, and I know I have an overview of where you are in the country with this whole thing, and also the processes of the financial processes and things that are going on in the systems. I personally have talked to generals in places, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I know
do.
about the trust. I know you have a number that they've given you, but I have a number that's much, much larger than that, where all of this came out of. So it's
Okay.
one big, big, big pot of $132 trillion.
Understood.
And everybody has this, it's been broken down, and all of these trusts, they've been put into trust. They place people all over the country to set up these trusts to be able to get out in the community, meet the community people, and let's get, ready to start taking care of people. Now, the monies are coming down as we speak.
Yeah.
They come down in tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how the process is working, but I do know that the system that you're in and connected to, I'm aware of that one and connected to it, but I'm also connected to a couple of others.
Understood.
And I would love to introduce you to, have you ever heard of Simon Parks, Connected Consciousness?
I have not.
Okay, because that's that's another person that has another avenue with funds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A big trust. His is not as big as some of the others. He only have like 10 billion, I think.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
I think his 10 billion is for Africa. So he probably will get another 10 billion for America or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they're divvying it out as we speak. And yes, they are depending upon us. They're depending upon us to get this thing together. And Michael, I'm going to tell you, I've been in multiple meetings with different groups of these people, everybody trying to get a chunk of the pie.
Yeah.
And none of them are on the same page together at the same level. The people at the top are not connected. The general was making little comments about us needing to all get together, but he never once offered to connect everybody who didn't know each other. You see
Understood.
what I'm saying?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So now in my conversation at that time, it was 5 different entities that I was dealing with. Each one of them was, they called them stakeholders at the time. Each one of them was a stakeholder. And in my conversation with each one of them, they each had their own ideology about how things should be done. And now one of them had the whole piece to the puzzle.
Understood.
But they thought they did. Every time they talk to me, I say, that's just another piece. That's just another piece. That's just another piece. I've been one of your biggest fans for years. I know you probably heard my name 1,000 times. Theresa King say you know Theresa King something, you know, because I know what you have. I didn't understand it as clearly as I got the understanding today. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Now I see exactly. But what I need to get from you, I need you to send me those PDFs that you showed us.
Okay.
The stuff that you showed us. I want to be able to go through it, and then we're going to take this thing and break it down, and we're going to get, because we're going to need more than what we have here. There's no way that just these few people are going to be able to map this out. But we also have to get pure-hearted people who care about humanity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people who are passionate about what we're doing here.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, so anyway, I'll leave
Good,
it there.
good. No, for sure, Teresa. Thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you so
Now,
much. I'll reach out to you. No problem.
All right, please do. Please do. And
Yeah,
send me those
absolutely.
emails. You have me. I know I'm Queen Theresa.
Yeah, no, I
King
got
at
it.
Gmail.
I got it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Let me throw this in the mix. The gathering spot, Chef Rod is very passionate about them. He got a special connection. He's feeding them as a location. Maybe we could do some, I don't know how much space they have, but they got a thing that started in Atlanta. You can go look up the gathering spot in LA. It's very posh, I guess. It's very nice. I know it because I've seen it in social media, but I don't know it like Chef Rod does, because he's got these people in his hip pocket, and along with Anthony and this thing. But here's my thing. Help me, Michael. The idea that, I don't need you to look at me. I'm just thinking out loud. But because I know you're writing some stuff down. But the point I'm saying is this: Watts, Long Beach, Compton, a spot that, two things, orders of magnitude. I don't know, but I got to give credit where I heard this most. Orders of magnitude dictate a lot. Like, what kind of scale are we talking about? That in order to accomplish a certain thing, like he said, 5 people in a meeting, okay, depending on who those 5 are, yeah, but that 5's got to turn to 25 and turn to 125, and it's got to have a thing like that to get to whoever. And therefore, the empowerment, Michael, I need from you, just like I know Dawood and many others have it, the ability to be backed by you, your organization, as a mouthpiece of a part of your organization, whatever that looks like, means something in the community, rank, position, or you're just another person talking.
Understood.
So if I can move out and say, okay, yeah, I have that has enough weight to say, okay, because it is a backing that I'm living up to what the Envision centers are all about.
Yeah.
And that's it. From there, the buy-in I can make that happen. I know that about me, because I don't have a part of my brain that concerns itself with whether you like me or not. I don't know if that's maybe a flaw or a blessing, but I use it as a blessing because it just takes going and doing it. And a location where once a week I can physically be there, and we could Zoom it every day, but physically be there to invite people in to just come. And I know the Scientology piece, I can get traction with, especially with your backing and with everybody here, Aagin, then they would have no choice but to say, because that book, I know how to leverage this book to where they will put so much attention on wherever the hell this is being talked about, if for no other reason to make sure that I'm not messing up their stuff.
Yeah.
That not maybe because they love me. I need them to come investigate. And when they investigate, everybody else will say, what they looking at over there? And they'll keep showing up, and they'll learn about the Envision centers. They'll learn about, and this is kind of the trickery of understanding, because when our people, and like the SoFi Stadium and different things, we show up. And so it's just a matter of having that little bit of understanding, which is very subtle, but it's very real. It's a very preciseness that Dawood and them understand. You see what I'm saying? And many, many, many others. But I do also know it takes a certain individual that can bring all that together. And like Theresa said, there's no other agenda but you winning. I'm not tied to what company you start, what organization you run. There's going to be a million other companies that don't exist that need to happen right away.
Exactly.
Like right away. And I know a million other youngsters that are 25 and under that are like, I need to learn how to start a business.
Yeah.
They just need to know EIN, don't put it in your own name.
Yeah.
I mean, don't put it in your address
teach
at home.
Put together
I'm saying this because it's live. This part is live. These little 4 points, and Andrew knows I talk about it. It's the EIN needs to actually be in an address like the gathering spot, but not your home address, and not your cell phone number, and not your Yahoo account or your Gmail account. And you need to go get a website at GoDaddy or whatever and put info at HerschelDaniels.com or info@SuiteExcursions.com, because now you're in position to get some federal funding, business credit, and so on and so forth. But this idea that I'm gonna just operate business from home, you're gonna commingle funds. IRS is gonna be on your ass. You're not gonna. When are you driving that car to the store for your personal versus when you're doing your home business about whatever the hell your home? You're gonna mess yourself up, and somebody has to slow down and tell you that you're positioned to win. Once you do that, because now there's government funding, there's grants, there's a lot of things we can talk about. But if your structure is like you're doing 5 different things out of the same EIN, and you're not clear about what this value you're bringing, it's not going to work.
Reamus, do you have a course creator template so you can create courses and teach?
No, that's what I've been counting on you to do, girl. Come on, that's why you holding back from me.
All right, we're gonna talk about it now. Now, Michael, I'm the vice president. The former president of the Long Beach School Board is on my board.
Okay.
But the school board president of today, I can touch the mayor in Long Beach, and I was with the mayor of Compton a few days ago. It's on people been calling me. I didn't film it and posted it, but a lot of people did post it out there and filmed it. I gave away. We took care of over 500 families in a park. Wow. And hung out. Me, the mayor, and the city councilman hung out the other day like sisters and brothers. So I got them in my back pocket if you need them. Okay. And then the city, anything in the city of Long Beach, they scared of me. But the mayor shakes in his boots. He shakes in his boots every time he see my face. Believe me,
it's a healthy fear.
Oh yeah, I'll never forgive him. Let me tell y'all, the mayor of Long Beach, when he was in city council, when he first became a city councilman, we was tight. We was Facebook friends. We talked all the time. But the minute he decided to run for mayor and tension became in the Black community, he blocked me. He blocked me from Facebook. He kept me on his little as you running the politician site or whatever. But as far as being my personal friend, he blocked me on Facebook. And I was like, because he know all of the Black people in Long Beach, it was a great division. And I was tight with all of the major Black people had already endorsed the other guy. Mm. Even the former mayor who I used to be advisor to. I don't remember if y'all remember, Beverly. So even she endorsed the other guy. So when he seen everybody that I know endorse the other guy, he literally blocked me as if I wasn't going to be faithful to him or something, right? Man, I was mad. And then guess what? He's the gay guy, right? His lover sent me an invitation. His lover sent me an invitation to come to a party, a birthday party, something he was doing for him. And when I seen that invitation, I took the opportunity to rant and rave and tell exactly how I felt about him and his whole whatever. So then one day, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna hold you, but Snoop Dogg, they were trying to save the sign on the building for VIP Records that Snoop Dogg did the video in front of. The city took the sign and was going to make it a landmark without Calvin being involved, it was his sign on top of the
which
building,
is also known as Snoop Dogg, right? Calvin.
Yeah, we talking about Calvin, the owner of VIP.
Oh, Records. I thought you were talking about Calvin. Okay.
No, but what we did was we all got together and went down to City Hall. Now I didn't get there on time. I'm probably the last one to walk in. So when I walk in, because it goes down, you come in up and you're looking down at the city council people, right? Mayor sitting in front. So when I walked in, the people that's sitting looking at them can't see me come in. Only they sitting down there to see me come in. They look up at me and the mayor didn't recognize me, because I know he didn't recognize me because D Andrews, I can't stand D neither. You better be kissing up to me every time I see him. I'm sick of it. D Andrews was vice mayor at the time. D leans over and tells the mayor something in his ear. He leans over and says something to him in his ear when he looks up and see me, and the mayor literally does this. His whole face fell in his hands, okay? Because I know it eats him up today. It eats him up today that he blocked me when he ran for mayor, because I was good to him and I was a friend and I believed in him. I supported him in everything he did. I told him he was gonna be mayor one day. You know what I'm saying? I told him he was going to be mayor one day, and he like, okay, I'm sorry. That's, you know, damaged relationships.
Hey, I'm gonna have to get off the call. I got something I gotta take care of, so I apologize.
Me
No,
too.
Michael,
We all
appreciate
need
you.
to get off here, I guess. I do too. You guys be blessed.
All right, thanks everyone for attending. I'll send you a link to the recording.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Andrew.
As soon as possible. Thanks.
You know.